Okay, so I'm with, we have our guests, the ERC guests, the ERC members are on board, and for another exciting renewal. I'm very excited about this one because we've already had a few partnerships or racing syndicates that have come on and in the past, and now we have another group of racing partnerships who operate predominantly in New York and race in New York. And Mike Oliveto, Hibiscus Stables, welcome. We're very excited to have you on. And of course, you know, again, this is really exciting for us because many of our members have been with us for 3 years now, and some of them are getting the itch. They want to start branching out and, you know, maybe potentially, you know, take the plunge and get into a different racing partnership. So can you just tell us a little bit about the Hibiscus model? How are you guys structured, and what is the basic structure of Hibiscus?
Okay, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Happy holidays to everybody. Yeah, Christina, we're based primarily in New York, but not solely in New York. We are big advocates of the New York breeding program. So we like to focus on New York breds whenever we possibly can. And it doesn't mean that we are exclusively race New York breds, but we like to lean in that direction when we possibly can, because with the New York breds, you've got a whole lot of interesting incentives and bonuses and restricted races. For instance, if you get a New York bred, you get to run in the New York bred maiden, and then there's 2 New York bred allowance levels before you have to go race against open company. So you get like 2 free conditions, opportunities to make purses before you have to go face the open company type horses. So we like the New York bred program for that reason. With our model, we believe that in terms of people who want to get involved in the racing game, there's really no one size fits all. So we have a few different ways that you can get involved with Hibiscus. The first is if you like instant gratification or immediate action, we put together claiming partnerships. And that means that you can go out and claim a horse today or tomorrow, and that horse can be turned back around and racing for you within a few weeks. So there you jump in, and you can quickly be involved in a race in just a very short period of time. Although there is upside with claiming horses, for the most part, I'm kind of like speaking in broad strokes, you kind of know what you're getting. So although it's possible to claim a horse and then have it turn out to be a stake horse down the road, it's probably not likely. You're probably going to have a claimer, and it's going to continue to be a claimer. If you can improve it a little bit, maybe you'll move it up. Maybe it could become an allowance horse. But it's kind of like what you see is what you get. The second kind of program that we have is a little different. That's where we will syndicate 2-year-olds. We'll go to the horse auctions, OBS or Fasig, Tipton, and Timonium. We'll buy 2-year-olds, and then we'll syndicate them to the general public. Those types of horses, there's a lot more risk because you don't really know what they are yet. They haven't raced yet. But we also feel you have a lot more upside. So the likelihood of claiming a horse and having it run in a graded stakes is probably a lot lower than if you were to buy the right 2-year-old and have that run potentially in a graded stakes. I don't want to mislead and say that we expect that to happen, because you still have to have a lot of things go right. But with the 2-year-olds, there's a little bit more risk and a little bit more upside, or maybe a lot more risk and a lot more upside. And then the third kind of program that we have is very, very different. And we put together actually breeding partnerships where we buy brood mares, and partners can actually buy shares of those brood mares. And then we breed them with an eye towards having the baby and then selling the baby at auction, hopefully for a profit. And then when those babies race, they're eligible. We as the breeders are eligible for breeder awards. So what's really fun about that is that's a much longer. So you have to have a much longer timeline. So like I said, with the claiming partnership, you could have action within a couple of weeks. breeding partnership, you really have to have a very, very long-term look. But we've had horses that we've bred, and again, we like the New York program. Almost all of our brood mares are resident New York mares. The babies are born, they are registered New York breds. And when we sell them, if we could sell them for a profit, that's one way that we can make money. And then when they race, if they race in New York, we're eligible for some for breeder awards, and they can be as much as 20 or 30% of the purses that horse may earn, if so long as it races in New York. So that's kind of fun, because once you sell the baby, you have no more expenses. You just sit back and watch it race and potentially collect checks. So it's kind of fun. So those are the three. We talk about our model. Those three elements composed are the entire Hibiscus Stables model.
Okay. And now, do you feel any one of those three models really predominantly draw in newer, or let's just put it this way, like less experienced owners? Do you find one of those three models seem to be the easiest entry point, or really it's just whatever you want to do?
The breeding partnership is very, very different, and it's not for everybody. So I would have to say that's kind of like a one-off. In terms of new people that want to get into the game, I would say it's hard for me to really weight it, but roughly 50-50, the 2-year-old partnerships versus the claiming partnerships. I would, if a person came up to me and said, what do I recommend? I would recommend a claiming partnership, because, like I said, you're going to have pretty instant, no say gratification, but instant action. And with the 2-year-old partnerships, we find that we can get out there and explain the risks and the timeline, because sometimes with a 2-year-old, you'll buy it and then it's not ready, it needs some time off, or 2-year-olds are kind of prone to, what we call like baby kind of injuries, where they're not career ending, but they just kind of get in the way. And so there's delays. And sometimes new people into the sport, like you explain that to them up front, they kind of get impatient, and it could be a little bit of a turnoff. So I say, if you're going to dip your toe in, I would probably point somebody towards a claiming partnership to start. And then once they get their experience, if they see that they like it and they want to try a 2-year-old, which is a little bit more expensive, a little bit more upside, a little bit more risk, they at least have their eyes open, and they've seen what the expenses look like, and what types of injuries could sometimes happen, or illnesses, or things that might get in the way.
Okay, and we've experienced it as a club with our horses. To your point, Mike, we've experienced it. We've had babies, they've had their baby problems, we've had stop and starts, and other times you don't really know what you have early on until they get to the races. Like, we have a filly that's running tomorrow. She's starting with maiden 40. Well, we didn't know that,
Right.
How could you wouldn't necessarily know that when they're purchased even earlier in their 2-year-old season, or as yearlings. So, it's just one of those things. It's just, you have to assess as you go along.
You can't know. And if you look, you open up a daily racing form any day, you'll see horses that are in maiden claiming races, and the daily racing form shows their auction price hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these are, some of the most experienced horse owners, in the world. So if they can't know when they buy a yearling or a 2-year-old that it's not going to be a maiden special kind of a horse, how is anybody else supposed to know? So you just have to. I can't stress enough that the game is very, very unpredictable, and you just have to do it for the fun of it. And you can't have unreasonable expectations. But back to your original question, though, even for me, and I've been doing this since 2003, when you have those delays and those stops and starts, they're kind of frustrating and they're disappointing. So that's why I say, if you're gonna start out, claiming partnership is just probably the better way to go. We claimed the horse back, I think, November 20th, and she's going to race again this coming Friday. So that's how quickly the partners got in and already have a horse to the races.
Okay, and so with Hibiscus, what would you say is, because again, I'm sure you have a very broad ownership, with the group of people that actually are investing or investors, what would you say is an entry point for Hibiscus? And also what is basically like structure, but not so much in terms of like different types of partnerships, but like financial structure? How do you guys set yourselves up?
There's a spectrum. With the claiming partnerships, we like to, again, you can claim a horse for 10,000, you can claim a horse for 50,000. Let's just, if you want to just say use $20,000, $20,000 claim, or we claimed a horse at Gulfstream. So we might break that up into 10% pieces, sometimes into 8s, 12.5% pieces. So if a $20,000 horse, a 10% partnership, you'd be looking at $2,000 for the horse itself. And then the monthly carrying costs, they vary a little bit depending on what racetrack you're at. So in New York, for us, you're looking at about $4,000 a month per horse. So if you were 10%, you'd be looking at about $400 a month. The Gulfstream's a little cheaper, and then the Mid-Atlantic's a little bit cheaper than that. That's kind of the entry point that you're looking at.
Okay. And now, if anybody has any questions who's already on the line, if at any point, if you have any questions, if you want to just use the hand up signal, you can just let us know and just mention to us that you want to.
A couple of things I just want to add, and that every syndicate is different, and this is where you really have to do your homework to decide which is right for you. Some syndicate horses at a very, very high level. Some syndicate horses at a very, very low level. With us, we structure it. I'll put the breeding partnership aside because that's really like a one-off. I won't spend any really time on that. The claiming partnerships, the way racetracks work, you have to have the money up front in your horseman's account before you can drop the claim. So our partners will actually give us the money to put in the horseman's account before we drop the claim. Because we're doing it that way, there's no risk to us, so we don't mark it up. If we claim a horse for $20,000, we syndicate that horse for $20,000. We don't make a profit on that. We make our money on a quarterly management fee and a percentage of the purses, and I can go into the details on that if you want. The 2-year-old partnerships are different. We do mark them up because we go and we buy that horse up front, and then we have to sell it. So we're taking a risk there. There's also, administrative, you have to go to the sale. You have to shop the sale. There's expenses that go along with that. So we have to cover our costs. So the markup and the management fees are a big part of every syndicate. So those are the questions that everybody should ask when they're doing their homework. Do you mark up the horse? How much? Do you charge a management fee? How much? And I believe that my knowledge of the competitors out there, I think we're on the lower end of those fees. So I think that's something that would make us attractive to other people.
Okay. Oh, Len, do you have? Hold on a second. I think Len Green has a. Hi, Len. Let's hold on. Let's get Len's mic. Len, I think you have to unmute.
I'm okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, I just think so that everybody in the group can get a kind of a feel for it. Again, the claim is simple, okay, and the way they're doing it is very, very good kind of thing. The problem is that we ought to be at least focusing in a little bit as to what percentage of markup, what type of management fee do they get, a fee for buying, a fee for selling, just in general, just do they do those kinds of things? That way everybody can compare apples to apples to apples along the way. I don't need specifics, and we don't need specifics, I'm sure. It's just those elements.
Thank you.
With us, with our claiming partnership, we don't mark those up. So if we claim a horse for $20,000, the partners pay $20,000 or their pro rata share of the $20,000. There's no markup. We don't make money on that. The way we make our money is we manage each horse has its own partnership, so its own LLC. Every horse is separate from all the others. So each horse we charge the partners collectively $500 per quarter just to manage it. So that's $2,000 per year to manage the horse. If you own 10% of the horse, your piece of that's going to be $200 per year. And then on top of that, anytime the horse earns a purse, we get 10% of that as an additional management fee. So that's what we see that as incentive based. If the horse doesn't make any money, we don't make any money, except for that quarterly management fee. If the horse makes a lot of money in purses, we make more. So we feel that that's it's incentive based and it's performance based, and we just feel that part of it is fair. The 2-year-olds, that fee structure is the same. The only thing is we do mark them up based on what we pay for them, and that it varies depending on the actual purchase price of the horse. So if it's a very, very inexpensive horse, we're going to have to mark it up a lot in terms of a percentage, because we have to cover our fixed costs. So if we buy a horse at auction for $15,000 or $20,000, we're going to have to mark it up quite a bit. If we bought a horse for $100,000, we don't have to mark it up that much as a percentage, because we have to cover our fixed costs that we incurred to actually get that horse bought. And that usually means getting on a plane, going to the sale, being at the sale for a week, or lodging. And then, of course, when you're at a sale, you have to usually vet and inspect a large number of horses before you can zero in on the few that you're going to bid on. So there's an awful lot of expenses that the general public may not realize go into the acquisition of a horse at an auction. So that's the reason why we have to mark those up. There's a lot. We incur much more of a cost in acquiring those horses. Claiming partnership is easy. You just have to see the horse that you like. Trainer is already at the racetrack. He'll inspect the horse in the paddock. And then if all the planets line up, you drop the claim. So the cost of acquiring that horse is minuscule compared to the cost of acquiring a horse at an auction.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question before we let Mike go? Oh, here. Hold on a second. Marguerite, if I could get your mic open here.
Hi, you mentioned that you operate or race mostly in New York. Where else do you operate? You mentioned Gulfstream, but
yeah, we're based primarily in New York. That's where the majority of our horses race. We primarily use Steve Placeris as our trainer. We've been using Steve since 2003. So he's based primarily in New York. He also has a base at Gulfstream. So those are the two. But we also won't hesitate to make use of any other track in the Mid-Atlantic. Parks, Penn National if necessary, Laurel certainly, Delaware Park, Monmouth, any of those tracks, because what we find, and you guys already probably know this, is that New York is probably at the top of the game. You want every horse to be able to compete at the NYRA level, but not all of them can. So if you have to drop a horse down in class, the proximity of those other tracks we find is like the best geographically in the country, as opposed to California, for instance, where I've spoken to people who race in California, and their biggest gripe is if you can't compete in the Southern California circuit, you really have nowhere. You can't just hop on a van and 45 minutes away have a slightly easier track to race at. So that's why we like kind of being based in the Northeast, but we're not afraid to run at any of those tracks anywhere up and down the East Coast, and we do.
Okay, Mike, we have one more question. Stephen, I see you have your hand up. I think your mic is open.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Great. Mike, thank you so much. I actually think we're neighbors. Do you live over in Putnam County?
I used to. I've moved to Connecticut now, but yeah, I used to.
Okay. I live in Rivington and Danbury, right off exit 1 there on 84.
Okay.
Kind of like neighbors. But anyway, I actually have looked on Owner's View and looked at Hibiscus because I had an interest in your syndicates.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm interested, can I talk to you directly?
Yeah. I mean, if you've been to our website, you'll see that you can email us or call us. All the info's on the contact us page.
Is Hibiscus a full-time job for you, or is this like a part-time thing?
It's a full-time job for me. And my partner, John Tazy, who was going to be on this call, but he couldn't make it. He and I more or less do this full-time.
Okay. All right, great. I'll reach out to you. Thank you so much for your.
Yeah, it'd be nice to, yeah, be happy to speak with you.
Thank you.
Shane, we have one more. We'll need to move on because we have also other guests waiting in the wings. But Shane, you're on. Oh, there you are, Shane.
I'll be quick. So I'm just looking at the Florida one and I see that the trainer partner is 50-50. So I'm assuming he gets 50% of the purse. You take the 10% and then the 40% is left for the.
Yeah, Steve likes to partner with us on a lot of our horses. So what happens is everything is split down the middle with Steve before anything happens. So for instance, give you an example. If we have a horse and it earns $50,000 net, Steve will get his 25, we get our 25, we meaning you guys, the partners, and then we take 10% of that 25. So we're not taking 10% off the top. We're taking 10% off of our piece. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. I think that did. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for joining us. It's really been informative. We got a lot of information in a very short period of time. But again, I'm going to share the information with all the partnerships that are on today. I'm going to share it with the members again. So if they want to get in touch with any one of you, they'll be able to get in touch with you guys.
Yeah, all the information's on our website. So if anybody wants to contact us, we have toll-free number, or the contact us email address, or we're very easy to reach, and we'll be more than happy to go into any more detail with anybody that has any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.